Who shall longer say that a woman cannot labor and vote like a man? Those are the words that lie on the obituary of Charlotte Darkey Parkhurst. Only a brave and intelligent woman would say something like that, you might think. You might be asking, who is this Charlotte you speak of? What did she do? Is she famous? 1812 was the year little Charlotte was born into a loving family. However, a few months after her second birthday, there was a tragic accident involving a horse and her carriage, and her parents were killed. For days, the only thing that kept her safe were the horses that were involved in the crash. Eventually, a couple found her, but they didn't want the burden of keeping Charlotte. So she was left alone in the world. The only thing she had was an orphanage and her love of horses. As an orphan, she was expected to perform chores, and she was kept from developing a relationship with any of the horses at the orphanage, the only things she truly loved. She had always felt close to the horses because that's all she knew. That's what saved her when she was a little girl, Freedom being her favorite horse of all. After years at the orphanage, Charlotte's most loved friend, her horse Freedom, died. She was then set to work in the kitchen of the orphanage, which she hated. Frustrated with the rules and the owners of the orphanage led her to devise a plan to escape. She wanted to seek real adventure and freedom in California. Her journey wasn't as easy as she thought it would be, though. The world was a harsh and cold place for a 13-year-old girl to be. During this time in history, the United States were at war. People were beginning to stand up for themselves. They wanted their voices to be heard. Many black men began to fight for their freedom and eventually their right to vote. In the meantime, states were seceding and the Civil War began. During this time, Charlotte was simply trying to escape the orphanage and find a place to call her home. On her freedom adventure, she was strong enough to survive injuries and overturn obstacles. She even managed to make some friends in the process, friends that would ultimately change her life. She had to work hard to survive and make a name for herself. She decided that being a 13-year-old girl would get her nowhere. She was already homeless, hungry, and tired. She couldn't risk being turned away. She knew that times were changing and that people treated women as property rather than people. So she made a decision. She would disguise herself as a boy. And she did just that. No longer was she Charlotte, the spunky and brave little girl who loved horses. Now she was Charlie, a 13-year-old boy who lived out in the country with his poor parents. She was making a new name for herself, for the new life she was going to live on her own. She found a job taking care of horses where she could ride them and spend time with them. There she was able to find food to eat and a place to rest. Slowly she made money and became quite good at anything dealing with horses. Over the course of the next few years, Charlie grew up. She began to realize that women were considered less than people. Not only were they not respected, they couldn't even vote. So continuing her ruse as a man named Charlie, she became a business owner and a landowner. She was able to spend her life fighting for her rights under the disguise of someone else. Because of that disguise, she was able to be a legendary stagecoach driver and an unbeatable horse handler, and many other things she would have never been able to do as a woman. So there she was, brave, legendary, and unstoppable, as Charlie. But what about as Charlotte? Was she ever recognized as who she really was? Was she ever able to vote? You'll have to read Riding Freedom to find out.